And this one could be the biggest one of ever. Why? Because we have an idiot lawyer who is running the Federal Reserve and does not know what the heck he is doing. The people that are suffering right now are the future generations, our children who, we're stealing, we're pulling forward gains that should accrue to our children. Even if Bitcoin were going to go up to a price of $200,000 right now, it's still the cheapest form of fire insurance on fiat that exists. So even at 200,000, Bitcoin is silly cheap relative to its intrinsic value. You cannot suck and blow. You cannot suck and blow, okay? Either pick one side or pick the other, okay? And he makes me friggin' sick. I just got back from Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where we had an amazing Bitcoin ski summit. You know what? I'm very passionate about this ecosystem. Let's start by saying that Silvergate is not a systemically important financial institution, or SIFI. So its voluntary liquidation is not going to be viewed as a systemically important event. There will be no bailout. If this was a systemically important institution, that I know we're going to talk about some of them at the end of the show, there would be a different reaction. That being said, it was a small bank, and it will be inconvenience for the onboarding of digital assets and the facilitation of changing those assets between stable coins and whatnot. But I'll put a different spin on it. This is why you own Bitcoin. Because the banking system in general is over-levered and has or another way of saying that is undercapitalized to the true risks that the commercial banks are exposed to. This is inconvenient for digital assets, certainly. I just saw a Wall Street Journal headline that flashed across that the four largest U.S. banks today have lost over $47 billion of market capitalization. Right. Okay, the banking sector is getting creamed today, and this happens regularly. But the funny thing is, too many people own bank stocks for the safety of the dividend. It's part of the fiat Ponzi, Paul. So sure. Silvergate Bank is a mosquito on the arsehole of an elephant. Like, we don't really care, but there's a bigger thing at play here. No, there's definitely impacts. It makes it more difficult. That being said, here's the crazy thing. It actually makes Bitcoin more intrinsically valuable because Bitcoin is your insurance against the fiat Ponzi and the commercial bank Ponzi. My first job in 1988 was working for the CFO of Canada's largest bank. That was the Royal Bank of Canada, still is Canada's largest bank. I was working directly for the CFO, and I ran a quick back-of-the-envelope calculation on Royal Bank of Canada, and it was insolvent, okay? Canada's largest bank was insolvent. Don't tell anybody. Hold on. Canada's largest bank has negative book value of equity on a mark-to-market basis, and a 25-year-old kid's not... I agree, I'm not supposed to go to the Wall Street Journal. And then if you think about this, every single other bank in the world, major money center bank, was in the same situation. This happens on a regular basis. This is why banking is inherently a very risky business, because it's so levered. 96 cents of every dollar that you lend is depositors' money or subordinate debt. If you lose that 4% on margin on the loan, meaning the price of the loan goes down by more than 4 cents because of default risk concerns, kaboom, it's over, Paul.
Business.
And This is it's not out of business because these banks are too big to fail. The state will step in and bail them out. Yeah, so again, I'm a Bitcoin, I focus on Bitcoin in the digital asset space because I'm a fiat minimalist, okay? Like, fiat is the Ponzi, and Bitcoin is the only digital asset, decentralized digital asset that addresses the fiat Ponzi, in my opinion. So fixed supply, definable supply, and then, most importantly, decentralized, all right? So I focus on Bitcoin. This just makes Bitcoin more valuable to me as financial market risk increases. Bitcoin becomes intrinsically more valuable to me. But does it mean that the price follows my intrinsic valuation? No, because it's traded by Wall Street algos and 25-year-old Ivy League cucks who come out of schools like Cornell, my alma mater, and know sweet FA about how to properly manage risk, okay? So they correlate Bitcoin as a risk asset when in fact it's not. It's insurance. It's exactly the opposite of a correlated risk asset. But don't tell that to the 25-year-old Ivy League cuck who comes out of Cornell after paying $200,000 for an education that he doesn't know how to manage Wall Street risk. Like, go, pound sand, okay? This is the problem, but over time, they will come to learn. So don't forget, I've seen the LDC crisis. I've seen long-term capital management. I've seen the great financial crisis. I saw the COVID crisis. And right now we're hitting number 5. And this one could be the biggest one of ever. Why? Because we have an idiot lawyer who is running the Federal Reserve and does not know what the heck he is doing. That is extremely dangerous. And the markets are doing the appropriate thing, which is like, reining in their risk. The people that are suffering right now are the future generations, our children who, we're stealing, we're pulling forward gains that should accrue to our children because we're soft like a marshmallow. We're soft like Andrew Ross Sorkin. He just doesn't get it. And he wants everyone to, pander to his entitlement right now. That's just awful. Something is going to break, and I'm going to predict what it is. And I think we're going to get to that on your show. But today was a horrible day for banks. Listen, as soon as the financial system stops working because confidence is evaporating in the financial system, the Fed can raise and ensure a cataclysmic explosion, or they can take their foot off the gas or the brakes as they always do, start quantitative easing infinity, which the mathematics require because of the debt spiral that they put us in. And fiat debasement is the error term. You just need to print more money to solve this debt spiral. And Powell admitted it the other day.
Oh, for sure.
He admitted it. Yeah. Okay, so here's the problem. You cannot suck and blow. You cannot suck and blow, okay? Either pick one side or pick the other, okay? And he makes me friggin' sick, this kind of unilateral lawyer speak garbage BS. It's just, I'm passionate. Why? I have 3 kids, Paul. This is bullshit for the future of the children. I want the U.S. to remain global currency or global reserve currency. U.S. treasuries as global reserve asset, I think, are going away. I think it will be replaced by Bitcoin, global store of value. But a global reserve currency, fiat currencies are good for certain things. They are not good for storing your value, but they are good for international trade and things like avoiding barter, right? Fiat currency, international trade is important in the global economic development. Fiat currencies are good for that. When will it happen? I cannot tell you. I don't want it to happen, but my guess is it's 10 years or more into the future. But here's what's not 10 years or more into the future. The failure of other fiat countries that have the same economic challenges or debt challenges, but they don't have the global reserve currency. So they will fail. They happen all the time. And here's the worst part. Canada, my homeland, which is a G7 country, is less important than California. And it will fail at least 10 years before the USA fails. But if Canada fails as the United States' largest trading partner, don't you think that might have an impact on the USA as well? Things happen quickly, slowly then suddenly, so you better own your fire insurance when it's cheap to own your fire insurance. Don't try and buy your fire insurance when the forest fire is right on your back porch, okay? That's the wrong time to buy your fire insurance. Well, let's make sure that, so I'm not predicting a 10-fold increase in the price of Bitcoin, but if 100 billion flowed into the US, into an ETF in the USA, and the market cap of Bitcoin right now is, less than 500 billion, it's actually less than 400 billion. Well, that's 25%. Hey, not gain. This is 20% funds flowing in. The gain could be far more substantial. But it still doesn't matter, Paul, because Bitcoin is so cheap. Even if Bitcoin were going to go up to a price of 200,000 right now, it's still the cheapest form of fire insurance on fiat that exists. So even at 200,000, Bitcoin is silly cheap relative to its intrinsic value. I didn't think we had much of a chance of winning in Canada, but we did beat the OSC, the Ontario Securities Commission. Now it's a little different than the SEC, but a securities regulator is a securities regulator. I'm hoping he's right, because everybody needs this on-ramp for exposure to their insurance policy.
Exactly.
I like to think of Bitcoin as a insurance policy against the default of all fiat currencies in the world. All fiats will fail. The USA will just be the last fiat currency to fail unless they get their act in gear. And what could they do, Paul? Yes, that's right.
Well,
they could put
CBDC.
Bitcoin on. No. They'll put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. They'll own Bitcoin as a reserve asset. And I believe Bitcoin should be worth more than $2 million per Bitcoin in today's dollars, which means if it traded from 20,000 to 2 million, I'd be like, okay, finally the market gets it. And it's just such a large asymmetric opportunity. I'm not going to sweat the next $5,000 or $10,000 move in Bitcoin. Okay. When it can go up 100-fold from 20,000, that's when I'm going to start looking at it and saying, oh, okay, maybe the market's finally getting it. Other than that, I'll leave it to the Ivy League cucks who trade around Bitcoin as a risk asset and in their algos, and it's correlated to this and it's correlated to that until it isn't. Okay. And that's the big thing. When Russia announces that they're holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet and they want to settle oil trades in Bitcoin, it's over. The petrodollar is baked.
It's done.
It's over. And if the USA doesn't catch up, I'm sorry, but it's over.